Hey, so I see people debating all the time what MEDDIC is. They say, is it a sales process, a sales methodology? Is it a qualification framework? Is it something else? Look, here's the thing. I don't think it really matters what you call MEDDIC. I think it matters how you use it. And the best examples of how people use MEDDIC are organizations that use it as an end-to-end model for talking about revenue, an end-to-end model for their revenue teams. A common language, if you like, to talk about one end of the sales process right through to the end of the sales process and then into the customer life cycle as well. Let me show you what I mean. So let's take a look at this here. So we've got across the top axis here, we've got the timeline, and it starts actually right before the sales process starts, right? We've got the go-to-market. So this is before we've even gone to market. We may even be like pre-launch or something like that. And MEDDIC can come in there and play a really, really important role in thinking about the language and the people that you talk to. What things are they going to be looking for, i.e. metrics, pains, those types of things. Who are the people that are going to be involved in the decision-making process? How do we think about how we need to message those people? So that's a big, big part of go-to-market. Then we get into the actual, we're in the market and we're launching, we're doing all kinds of things, marketing, we're doing sales development, we might be using partner networks, all that kind of stuff. And this is like where the leads start to come in. It's how do we qualify those leads? How do we pick which leads we want to work? How do we pick which leads we want to pursue? Then that comes into a whole thing around qualification, which is next, where we actually start to, work those leads and turn them into opportunities, early stage opportunities. Once they're qualified, using again no better qualification framework than MEDDIC, we get into the selling, and of course we know how much MEDDIC keeps you on the front foot when you're selling. And then the closing, of course, as well, especially when it comes around to making sure that it's forecastable, accurate, everything's on time, everything's running as it should be, no surprises. And then actually this is where a lot of people forget or don't see the potential of MEDDIC, which is that it can become a tool that you use post-sale. If you think about the best possible MEDDIC deal you've ever seen in your life, it's a handover document dream is MEDDIC. If you think about all of the data that would get passed to a customer success person from a deal that's been heavily MEDDIC'd, you're going to know exactly why they bought, what problems you're solving, what KPIs they're expecting to have via the metrics. You're going to know who's in the decision process, who the stakeholders, all that kind of stuff. So MEDDIC is a dream for customer success. So it should absolutely go into customer success. And then they're further forward. When you get into QBRs, you should be talking to the right people, the same stakeholders. You should be engaging and still trying to build more champions and all that good stuff. You should be reflecting back on the metrics that were promised, that were set out as part of the value behind the deal. And then likewise, that's all going to help a lot when it comes into doing the renewal. So that's the top half, right? That's the stages. We've not talked a little bit about the bits below, which are the departments and the different types of stakeholder that will be in this. But let's just stop for a moment and zoom in a little bit on that. So we talked about marketing, how you can see with the green ticks, they can use MEDDIC all the way across. And some of these red ticks actually, depending on your marketing team, but I would argue that a marketing team can and should be aiming towards a post-sale customer marketing type of thing. Sales developers, well, of course, they're going to be using MEDDIC very, very heavily early on, and then their work tends to stop when the selling tends to start. Sales, obviously, you see it all the way through, and depending on whether you're the kind of sales team that gets involved in renewals will depend on whether you use MEDDIC there. Of course, you would if you did. We talked about customer success. Depending on how soon they get into the sales process will depend on how quickly they start using MEDDIC. And then there's other departments like the leadership, right? Not just leadership, product, all these other departments that when they start to think about customers, when they start to think about revenue, if you can start to get them to think along these lines of metrics and start to think about the pain that they're solving, then it's going to keep them very, very focused on the same things that the sales team, that the revenue team is focused on. Likewise, when we're talking about leadership, whether it be C-level people or lower down, if you're able to talk in the language of MEDDIC, it's going to make a very, very easy conversation for everyone. Then we get a bit away from the departments and people, let's talk about methodology. So a common mistake, and going back to the message right at the start of this video, a common mistake is to think that MEDDICC is a sales methodology. Of course, it is a methodology in sales, so by that nature you can call it a sales methodology. But the problem I see when people call MEDDICC a sales methodology is that they assume that you can only have one sales methodology, and that, of course, is absolutely not true. In fact, MEDDICC, if you think about some of the great sales methodology like force management, command of the message, like things like challenger sale, like spin selling, those are all kind of sales methodologies, and they sit on top of MEDDICC, and they work very well. So in this case, you can see the methodology here that fits in and does a really good job of working on top of MEDDICC. So when you're talking about the value frameworks and the messaging frameworks you're taking to your customers, you're doing so knowing exactly who the people you are talking to, exactly where you are in the sales process, as well as, you know, again, who else is involved. So really good part is the methodology. Likewise, apps. When I'm talking about apps, I'm talking about Salesforce, CRM, I'm talking about Outreach, SalesLoft, Gong, all of the intelligence tools that sit on top. I'm talking about Clary, I'm talking about anything that you use as an application to help you sell. If you're able to build it on top of MEDDICC, then you can start to get a very clear common language across the entire revenue operations team. Now, all of this is to say that I think that we're going back to the original question of, you know, what is MEDDICC? Is it the sales methodology? Is it a sales framework? Is it a qualification framework? Well, here's my take on it. I think MEDDICC is an operating system for revenue teams. You could call it MOS if you wanted to, and that's a good point as well, because it's like, which version are we running? Well, I like to think of it, if you're going to take the analogy, as like MEDDICC, the first version, that's a little bit like, if we were to use the analogy of an operating system, that's a little bit like, let's say Windows XP. It's a rock solid operating system. It's still used today in a lot of places. But since then, a lot of advancements have happened, and that's why we've obviously got MEDDICC with 2 C's and MEDDPICC as well. And I look at it like this, is if you're going to install, if you're going to update your computer or you're going to buy a new computer, you wouldn't install Windows XP on it. That's why very few people I come across will install just MEDDICC with 1 C, install, implement, you know what I mean. And then it comes down to the choice of, you know, depending on what's right for you, will depend on which version you implement. And as well, if it is an operating system, just to stretch the analogy further, then MEDDICC would be a open source operating system, right? Because it's not owned by anyone, right? It's not like Windows or Apple own their operating systems. It's more like a Linux. So it's not owned by anyone, it's open source. And what that allows you to do, one of the beauties of this, what that allows you to do by being open source is adapt it to suit your needs. So, you know, if these letters aren't enough for you, if you need a compelling event, if you've got risks that you have in your process, you want to put an R on, if you feel it's really important that you have trust if you recognize trust, then put a T in. You can do what you want with MEDDICC. That's part of the beauty of it. As I say, it's less about what you call it, how you interpret the different letters, more about how you use it. And I'd like just to finish by thinking about it from this. If you are able to get MEDDICC working right the way across your sales process, right across all the different teams you have, let me tell you, it's going to be a hell of a proficient, efficient, and revenue creating machine that you'll build. Thanks for listening. Take care. May your champions be strong.